We all get stuck at some point. Maybe it's trying to lose weight or grow your business. Maybe you are stuck in a dead end relationship or you can't commit to writing your first book. Been there. Whatever it is, getting unstuck can be infuriatingly difficult to do. If it was easy, though, we wouldn't be stuck now, would we? Hi, welcome to the Unstoppable Leader. Whether you are a CEO, founder, executive, or just want to become one, this YouTube channel is the place to get ideas, insights, and the clarity you need to be unstoppable. Grow your influence and impact each week with me with one key idea for high impact leadership. If you're ready to grow your influence, subscribe to this channel using the red button below. Now let's get into this week's content, the foolproof secret for getting unstuck. The great news is people do change. In fact, we are always changing. Most of the shifts that we make in our lives are natural, and we're able to make them with moderate or little effort. Let's say traveling or moving into a new home or getting a new job, even getting married. However, there are those changes that we really long for, but we just can't quite seem to make the leap from here to there. Even if we do change briefly, like let's say we decide to lose weight and we make great progress, we find ourselves sucked right back in to that old pattern, even though we thought we were rid of it. Those are the places, and hear me on this, those are the places I believe our soul most needs to grow. It might be easy for one person, but they don't need to grow in that area. It's the ones that are difficult and challenging for us where we need to grow. My most recently published book, Own Your Own Shift: The Passion, Power, and Freedom to Be Unstoppable, contains a universal 12-stage process for getting unstuck. And it is absolutely foolproof, with one exception. To get unstuck, you absolutely must be willing to do the work. No one can get you unstuck for you except you. That's the unvarnished truth. Sorry. However, I can help you do that work. And here are the stages that go from stuck to unstoppable, and a key insight to help you really anchor each one. So the first stage of shift is being sick and tired. Well, that doesn't sound very attractive, does it? But to get unstuck, we must be completely through trying to do things the way we have been doing them and expecting a different result. Are you at the point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired with your current situation? Just knowing something isn't working for you is not always enough to make a shift. We've all been there. We find some part of our life is uncomfortable or even outright self-destructive. And we sit ourselves down and we have a talk. We tell ourselves we are ready for a change. We might even go so far as to share it with someone. And then nothing happens. So if simply wanting to change was all it took, we would immediately stop eating unhealthy food. We would stop procrastinating on deadlines. We would leave abusive relationships and jobs with no delay. We would cast aside any addictions once and for all before we created havoc in our own lives or in the lives of those we love. If awareness was all it took, making a shift would be so easy that entire industries built on helping us have breakthroughs, like the fitness industry, would be out of business. You see, willpower won't get you very far. Instead, you get to redefine yourself. This idea of redefining ourselves can be terrifying to many of us because losing our definition of who we are can feel like suicide, at least to our ego. Whether we feel that way or not, it represents the death of who we have been. And that is one of the reasons that we're stuck in the first place. So being sick and tired gets us into the process of shift. The second stage is surrender. And there's a lot of misconception about what surrender really is too. But here's what I want you to know about the surrender stage. Whatever you want can be yours when you're willing to give up whatever stands in your way. That is the underlying principle of surrender. You see, we aren't giving in to something outside of ourselves. We are opening up something inside of ourselves. Surrender is like throwing open the door to infinity where all things are possible. It's incredible. And it also can be disorienting. To pass through that door, we only need to let go of everything familiar that we thought we knew. That's surrender. So why is surrender often so difficult? Well, we're now entering the third stage of recognizing we are not alone. One reason it's so difficult to do the surrender stage is because it's disorienting. But we're in relationship to others, and others can help us find our center and our balance. We live in a world that values self-sufficiency. I can do this myself. Thank you very much. But because we live in a world of relationship to others, we can learn and we can grow through that relationship. In fact, I believe that's how we learn and grow is through relationship to others. And it's how we're able to serve, how we share our unique gifts and talents, which is generally related to our purpose. So know that you are not alone in your shift, and there are others who have been there too. So here are the ways to really activate your connection to others. One is to learn from others who have been going through the very same shift that you're now undertaking. Two is to seek motivation from the masters, seek inspiration from successful individuals in whatever area of shift you're undertaking, and let them inspire you with what they've done to succeed. Then you can also just simply increase your knowledge by looking at the stages and the steps that others go through. So you're not needing to reinvent the wheel, right? You get to develop your wisdom and your skill by simply reading, studying, and practicing. Of course, a big part of being in relationship to others is being open to feedback. The real trick in shift is to avoid the pitfalls, the potential risks, the delays, and by receiving feedback, you are allowing yourself to accelerate the process. That's why coaches like I and my fellows are in such demand right now, is because it really accelerates your success. And then get a tribe. There's nothing like being in a group of like-minded individuals working on the same thing. It's very supporting and it's very empowering to be in that tribe. So when you've got that context of the relationship of the process of your shift, then it's time for the next stage, which is to now go within and trust your inner fire, trust your intuition. Intuition is not just a nice idea. It is actual scientifically proven component of our unconscious thought process that actually thinks faster and more accurately in many cases than our rational mind. So to make a personal shift, it's vital that we learn to trust this inner guidance system. We will always have fears and doubts. It's just going to happen. It's how we think. But when we establish that deep connection to our intuition, our inner guidance, then we don't give those fears and doubts as much power as we once did. Our inner guidance communicates to us what we need to do next if we're connected to it and we are able to listen to it and recognize it and trust it. Because this is such a crucial component of making a powerful transformation, my book, Own Your Own Shift, in the chapter Trust the Fire Within, has several exercises that strengthen the connection between our unconscious and conscious mind so that we really can hear, recognize, and trust our intuition. Once you've got that connection going, and that can take some time, it's time for getting clarity. Now, the inner wisdom is a form of clarity. This is what I need to do. But the clarity we're talking about in this stage is, where am I headed and why am I headed there? So be clear about where you want to go. Clarity is always about looking ahead of us. We tend, when we're trying to make a shift, we have an unfortunate tendency, I'll put it that way, to focus on the problem. To focus, instead of on getting healthy, we focus on the weight gain. Instead of finding the perfect relationship, we focus on all the relationships that weren't working. So getting clarity is about looking at what you do want and what your non-negotiables are. So it's not a flight from anything, it's a pilgrimage. And it's always where the inner guidance will rise up and move us in that direction. We open up a channel for creativity and possibility when we get clarity about where we're headed. With clarity, we then move to the next stage, which is the title of the book, Own Your Own Shift. So in that stage of personal shift, when you own your own shift, you are actually stepping into your true power. You see that everything you've been wanting is actually possible for you. So there's hope. It's wonderful. And here is where you see the world in a whole new light for the first time. You know where you're headed. You've shed what's holding you back. You have identified any beliefs that you may have had that were obstacles, and you are at least willing to begin to try a different approach with the support and guidance of others who've been where you are. It sounds wonderful and miraculous, and it feels incredible, and we get a little high in this stage of shift. But the next stage that follows that, almost inevitably, is one that can stop people in their personal shift. And that's a stage I call initiation. So you've already started creating momentum. You're already experiencing the success that comes from owning your own shift. And then here comes initiation. Because there's always more work to do. And the bigger the shift, the more difficult the shift is, the more work there will be. And most of us want to believe that there will be times during shift when it will feel like everything is rosy and perfect and wonderful and we've arrived. And we don't want to believe that there's going to be a time when we feel like it's just easier to stay the way it was. What happens when that comes up is that inner fear-based voice, the ego, sometimes we call it, is getting louder and stronger. It's resisting. And that pain, depending on the shift, can sometimes feel almost intolerable. But here's the thing. When you recognize that this is a natural part of shift, that it is likely to happen, you are then prepared. You're like, oh, here we are. We're in initiation. And we realize it's temporary. It's not permanent. We didn't just fall back into our old way of being. It's like we hit a new level of the game. And that is just writing out the old self, which was the original obstacle in the first place, truly. And it's just letting that go, letting it come up and releasing it. And this is really kind of the idea behind being reborn, if you want to know the truth. Then we're ready for digging in for the long haul. The next stage of shift is planning to practice. We live in a world that expects, let's be honest, instant results, instant success, instant food, instant weight loss, instant return on investment. But most instant successes, if we really just scratch the surface at all, happened over decades, happened over a long period of time. And any major personal shift takes patience, persistence, and consistent action. Your habits, of course, we know, determine your outcomes. But getting there requires a level of discipline that many of us are not necessarily prepared to dig in with the focused energy to make things happen. So knowing that planning to practice is part of that transformation before we arrive is very important. The idea, and this is difficult for me, to believe that the results are happening even before we see them is a part of this planning to practice phase. And then that takes us into the 9th stage of shift, which is getting uncomfortable. If you want a different experience, you're going to need to step outside of your comfort zone. We've all heard it. And there's nothing in the world that we seem to resist more than our own discomfort at the same time. It's encouraging to me to remember the saying, if you are not a little bit uncomfortable, then you're not growing. So consider, if you will, the pain, the ache in your muscles when you're doing a new workout routine. That is the kind of pain that is temporary discomfort for a wonderful outcome. So those are the things, the behaviors that can feel so awkward. And we hate being uncomfortable, but the discomfort is a sign of progress. So it's actually good news. At this point, stay the course. The next part of shift is being the outcome. When we want something really badly, we can spend a lot of time dreaming about it. It would be something like, how would it feel to get that, right? But human imagination is such a wonderful thing. It barely gets an opportunity to perform as it's meant to perform. Of course, we do vision boards and we litter them with pictures of the people and the places and the things. And it's absolutely fine as far as it goes. It's how I found my dream home. It's how I found my dream husband. However, there is something deeper required for real shift. We must immerse ourselves fully, emotionally, in the experience that we want to have, even sensorily. What will the person on the other side of our shift think, feel, say, and do when he or she is there? Then we begin, when we start really getting into that, we begin to act like the person who already has the things and the mindset of the person she's ready to be. Our vision must be about us, not the stuff. So be the outcome. The 11th stage of shift is to choose you. Transform your inner critic into an inner coach. Choose yourself. Research indicates that people talk to themselves, inner dialogue, right, about 50,000 times a day, and that 80% of the self-talk is negative. At the end of the day, if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect anyone else to believe in you? You need to be your biggest fan, because if you don't value yourself to the highest degree, no one else can. Of course, this can be easier said than done when we're taught to compare our insides to other people's outsides and value belonging over fulfillment. But that's why I have, at the end of the chapter on choosing you, so many self-affirming exercises to help your self-concept for making shift really solidified. And keep in mind, self-affirmations are not this nice fluffy idea. They actually retrain our brain. That's why they're so powerful. The final stage of shift, is to celebrate the shift. Gratitude is 100% necessary to retaining any shift you undertake, but it's also necessary for achieving it. What we are grateful for, we get more of, even before we achieve our ultimate goal. Think about that. If you are like me, you can become so goal-oriented that you forget to be present and even notice the incremental successes. Appreciate your success. Failure to appreciate your shift drains confidence and returns us back into stuck faster than a bullet train. Here is where, in this stage, we take responsibility for the impact of our thoughts and our decisions. And we understand that we are the ones who are creating our reality, and we affect reality not only of those around us, but also for ourselves. To find out more about owning your shift and to get the practical exercises at each stage that really anchor this incredible work, grab your copy of Own Your Own Shift on Amazon, and I will drop the link below. Thanks for being here.